this Department of War. So we won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
On September 4th, 2025, President Donald Trump did something that nobody saw coming. He signed an executive order that completely changed how America thinks about its military. With one signature, the Department of Defense became the Department of War. And honestly, when you understand why he did it, it actually makes a lot of sense. Let me take you back to the beginning of this story. See, most people don't realize that from 1789 all the way to 1947, America's military was actually run by something called the Department of War. That's right. For over 150 years, we called it exactly what it was. And here's the crazy part. During that time, America won some of its biggest military victories. We're talking about World War I, World War II, the Civil War, you name it. Then in 1947, something changed. Politicians decided to rename it the Department of Defense. Now, on the surface, that might seem like a small thing, right? Just a name change. But Trump sees it differently. And when you hear his reasoning, you might too. During the signing ceremony, Trump put it pretty bluntly. He said, "We won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to go woke, and we changed the name to Department of Defense." Those were his exact words. He believes that changing the name wasn't just about being politically correct. It actually changed how America thinks about warfare. Think about it for a second. When you hear Department of Defense, what comes to mind? Probably protecting yourself, playing it safe, maybe even being reactive rather than proactive. But when you hear Department of War, that's a completely different mindset. That's about taking action, being aggressive, and most importantly, fighting to win. Pete Hegseth, who's now the Secretary of War instead of Secretary of Defense, really drove this point home during the ceremony. He said something that stuck with me. "We haven't won a major war since that name change in 1947. And you know what? When you look at Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, he's got a point. These weren't clear victories like World War II was." Hegseth explained that this isn't about disrespecting our soldiers who fought in those conflicts. Those men and women are heroes, and they did their jobs incredibly well. But he argued that the problem was with the overall strategy and mindset. He said the new Department of War is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts, and fight to win, not just not to lose. That phrase really hits different, doesn't it? Fight to win, not just not to lose. When you think about some of America's recent military engagements, that distinction becomes pretty important. How many times have we gotten involved in conflicts that seem to drag on forever without a clear end goal? Trump brought up a perfect example of this during the ceremony. He talked about ISIS and how Washington experts told him it would take 5 years to defeat them. 5 whole years. But then he asked General Dan Racine Kane, and Kane told him it would take about 4 weeks. Trump actually thought Kane was crazy at first, but guess what? Kane was right. ISIS was essentially wiped out in about a month when they were allowed to fight with a clear victory objective. This gets to the heart of what Trump is trying to change. He believes that America has gotten too caught up in fighting politically correct wars instead of fighting to actually win. And honestly, when you look at the results, it's hard to argue with him. We have the most advanced military in the world, the best equipment, the best training, but somehow we keep getting stuck in these endless conflicts that don't seem to accomplish much. Trump made another point during the ceremony that really stood out. He said, "We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete." And he's absolutely right about that. America's military technology is decades ahead of everyone else. Our submarines alone are 20 years more advanced than anything else out there. So if we have all this incredible capability, why aren't we achieving decisive victories? Trump's answer is simple: mindset. He thinks that by calling it the Department of Defense, we've trained ourselves to think defensively instead of offensively. We've become reactive instead of proactive. Now, some people might ask, but wait, isn't Trump supposed to be the guy who's bringing peace to the world? And that's actually a really good question. Trump has been working on ending conflicts, not starting them. He's negotiated several peace deals and is working on ending the war in Ukraine. So why rebrand to something that sounds more aggressive? Trump's answer to this is what he calls peace through strength. The idea is that when you project overwhelming strength, other countries think twice about challenging you. It's like that old saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. Except Trump's version is more like, make sure everyone knows you have the biggest stick and you probably won't need to use it. During the ceremony, Trump mentioned that he's already resolved 7 major conflicts through this approach. He said most of them were resolved through 2 things: trade negotiations and projecting strength. And he emphasized that strength might actually be more important than the trade aspect. The psychology behind this makes sense when you think about it. If you're a potential adversary of the United States and you see that they've renamed their military department to focus on war rather than defense, that sends a very different message. It says, we're not just going to sit here and wait for you to make the first move. We're prepared to take action. But this isn't just about sending messages to other countries. It's also about changing the culture within the American military itself. Hegseth talked about this during the ceremony, saying the new Department of War is going to focus on maximum lethality, not tepid legality, and violent effect, not politically correct. He wants to raise up warriors, not just defenders. Now that might sound harsh to some people, but think about what a warrior's job actually is. A warrior's job is to end conflicts quickly and decisively, so that peace can return as soon as possible. A defender's job is to, well, defend, to hold the line. But holding the line indefinitely isn't really a victory, is it? One thing that's interesting about this whole rebrand is how it's being implemented. This isn't actually a complete legal name change. That would require Congress to approve it. Instead, Trump signed an executive order that makes Department of War the secondary official title. It's kind of like giving the Pentagon a nickname that everyone has to use. Trump said they might push for Congress to make it official, but they're not sure they need to. And honestly, that's probably the smart way to do it. Get people used to the new name first, see how it works out, and then worry about the legal paperwork later. The cost is another interesting aspect. Trump made it clear that this isn't going to be some massive, expensive rebranding effort. He said, "We know how to rebrand without having to go crazy. We're going to start changing the stationery as it comes due. Smart approach. Just update things naturally as they need to be replaced anyway." This is actually pretty different from some previous military rebranding efforts that cost enormous amounts of money. Trump specifically mentioned how frustrated he was with the previous administration changing the names of military bases, which he felt was unnecessary and expensive. Many of those communities actually wanted their original names back, like Fort Bragg. When you step back and look at this whole situation, it really represents Trump's broader philosophy about American power and how to use it effectively. He believes that America has been too passive for too long, too worried about what other people think, and not focused enough on achieving clear objectives. The timing of this rebrand is also significant. We're living in a world where China is rapidly expanding its military capabilities. Russia is engaged in a major conflict in Ukraine, and tensions are high in multiple regions around the globe. In this environment, Trump believes that projecting strength and clarity of purpose is more important than ever. General Kane, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, put it pretty well during the ceremony. He said, The US military can reach any adversary at the time and place of our choosing. That's not a threat, that's just a fact. But by rebranding to the Department of War, Trump is making sure that fact is front and center in everyone's mind. At the end of the day, this rebrand is about more than just changing some letterhead. It's about fundamentally shifting how America thinks about its military power and how to use it most effectively. Whether you agree with Trump or not, you have to admit that he's not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom and try something different. The question now is whether this change will actually work. Will calling it the Department of War lead to more decisive military actions and quicker resolutions to conflicts? Will it deter America's enemies from challenging us in the first place? Or will it just create unnecessary tensions and make diplomacy harder? Only time will tell. But one thing is for certain, with this single executive order, Trump has started a conversation about American military strategy that probably needed to happen. And sometimes, that's exactly what a controversial decision is supposed to do. Make people think differently about something they've taken for granted.